So in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to take this sharp 9, flat 6 combination of tones from the altered dominant scale and combine them with a minor 7 arpeggio to make a 2-5 that's just a really killer 2-5 that is easy to take perpetually through the keys. You know, I love these little perpetual patterns that just move forward one key into the next. So I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And you just heard me going through a few keys a moment ago, and at the end of the video I'll play all the way through it for you. Before we get into the perpetual pattern, let's talk about the components of the pattern, because I really want you to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. So on the minor 7 chords, this is easy. The minor 7 chords, we're just going to play the minor 7 arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, 7, and I'm demonstrating for you in D minor 7 to G dominant. D minor 7 to G dominant would be 2-5 in either C major, C minor, or even it would even serve as a 2-5 to a C dominant chord. So D minor 7. Now on the dominant chord, I'm going to go into what I call an action cell. The sharp 9, flat 6, minor 7. And I call it an action cell because, dominant chords, the function of dominant chords is to move the harmony forward. Dominant chords are generally seeking resolution. So we can play this on dominant chords as part of that harmonic motion. And it really, this pattern works on many dominant chords. It can be an unaltered dominant chord, a dominant 7 flat 9 chord, a dominant 7 altered dominant chord. But now the action cell again is sharp 9, flat 6, minor 7. And then it moves forward. You can hear it wanting to go. Now in a moment I'll show you an easy way to determine the action cell tones, but first I want to give you some examples, or show you some examples, let you hear some examples of how this action cell can be used in 2-5-1 passages, whether they're whether they're minor 2-5-1s or not. You can still use this action cell in passages like the one that we're going to learn. Here's another one, another 2-5-1. Another one, this one's from Sonny Stitt. Here's another situation. Another one. Now, the tones in this action cell, when used on a dominant chord, actually come from the altered dominant scale. So I just played the G altered dominant, which is a derivative of A flat melodic minor. And take a look at the scale. You can see I've got the flat 9, the sharp 9, the flat 6, the minor 7. They're all identified within that scale. But, take a listen to this sound. We also find this action cell located within the E flat major scale. So if you think of and this is probably going to be the easy way to learn it. So on the major scale, it's 5, 4, 1, 2, and then the resolution or the target tone, maybe I should just call it a target tone, is the 3 of the major scales. So the way you can learn this action cell through all the different major scales, you can just take your major scale, and there you hear I've just demonstrated on a couple of scales. Now, when we're playing this dominant chord, we don't necessarily want to have to think this related kind of major sort of scale. We don't want to have too many things in our thought processes. So my suggestion is that you learn this action cell on different major scales. just learn it so that you're not even really having to think the major scale. You're just thinking this group of tones, this cell. So the cell you want to be able to trigger with just one thought. Starting on any note. Let's say I start on C sharp. Any tone, you want to be able to just think that cell without having to refer to the major scale. Now, when you can do that, it's going to be much easier to use this cell in different situations. And in fact, this cell of tones, this group of tones, work on many different chords, not just on these dominant chords, but I don't want to even get into all the different kind of chords that these work on. It's just a beautiful sound, and it works particularly well. My favorite application is on these dominant chords as an action cell. If I were to play these notes in a major key on the major chord, I don't think I would think of them as an action cell because they don't have that harmonic motion that they do on dominant chords. They're not really pulling the harmony forward like the dominant chords do. Maybe even think of it as leading towards the next chord. So once you start to feel pretty good with the notes in these cells, you'll be ready to start working on our perpetual pattern. Now, the chord progression we'll use for the perpetual pattern is a series of 2/5s that move in fourths. So take a look here, and you'll see I've got D minor 7 to G7. This is followed by a 2/5, a fourth away, up a fourth, G minor 7 to C7, then a 2/5 up a fourth, C minor 7 to F7, etc., all the way on around the keys. And an easy way to think of it is that each dominant chord is followed by a 2 chord with the same root. So G7 is followed by G minor 7. C7 is followed by C minor 7, and if you know your 2/5s, then you're in good shape. If you don't know your 2/5s, you can read the progression here. I would rather you not read all the notes. I'll provide a cheat sheet also with the written portion of this lesson that does have all the notes written out, but I'd rather you work, even if it takes a lot longer to learn this. It's really going to benefit you a lot more if you learn this without having to read everything. So here are our steps. You'll play the minor 7 arpeggio on the 2 chord. So I'll just take a D minor 7 to G7. I'm going to start on low D this time. I'm going to follow this by playing an action cell that begins a whole step lower, the B flat. So I just played D, F, A, C. I'm going to drop down to the B flat, and then I know my action cell, so I'm not trying to figure out what the sharp 9 is, the flat 9 is, the flat 6. And I don't want to have to try to figure all that out while I'm playing. I've got that cell in my hands because I've practiced it a number of different ways, the major scale included. So I've got the D, F, A, C. I'm going to drop down a whole step, and I'm going to play the action cell. And I'm going to let that action cell resolve forward to the naturally occurring target. And that's the first note in the next component of our perpetual pattern. So I'll follow this by playing the whole process on G minor 7 to C7, up the G minor 7 arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, 7. Drop down a whole step and play the action cell, and I'm just going to know in the back of my mind that those notes are sharp 9, flat 6, and it targets forward a whole step to the C, and this continues on and on. Now, what you'll find is this perpetual pattern like this starts to ascend, and it starts to reach the top of your range. So once you start to get into the top of the range, you can work your way down by octave displacing on the minor chord, and you can see here on the F minor 7 chord, rather than playing. This is starting to get on up into the top of the range. I think at that point I'm just going to octave displace and play the third of the minor 7 chord down an octave, etc., right on around the keys. So as you go around the keys, rather than all of this going into muscle memory, I really want you to think about where you're at in the progression. And you could even do this by practicing like this. Okay, I'm going to play D minor G. G minor 7 to C7. C minor 7 to F7. F minor to B flat 7. So you see how, as I'm practicing this, and I actually did this when I was learning this myself, because I know I started playing this and I get a little tangled up because I'm used to a lot of times practicing things with guide tone movement where we have half steps, but this pattern is, we're really dealing with whole steps in fourths much more than half steps. I don't think we even have a half step in the whole pattern, so we've got fourths and whole steps. One of the things, and another one of the things that I think is really going to benefit you from doing this is you're going to learn your sharp 9, your flat 9, and your flat 6, the key components of altered dominant sounds. So take a listen to it all the way. Remember, I've got the full cheat sheet in the written lesson, but it's much better for you if you don't read the cheat sheet. Maybe just keep the cheat sheet handy to double check yourself if you get into some difficult keys and have some trouble with them, okay? Oh, hey, and before I play the perpetual pattern for you in all 12 keys, I just wanted to take a moment and mention that my name is Randy Hunter, and if you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel here. And also, I've got tons of jazz improvisation lessons available at beginningsax.com. And also, I've got a subscription website where I recently counted up, and I've got in the neighborhood of 500 videos on there. And my lessons generally come with PDFs, and many of them even have play-along tracks. So the subscription site is randyhunterjazz.vhx.tv. Now take a quick listen to the perpetual pattern around the circle.